With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Are you ready to turn your passion for spirits into a thriving business? Welcome to Regard Law Group, your trusted partner in Central Kentucky. Whether you're looking to set up a distillery, create a liquor brand, or open a bar or restaurant, we've got your back. From licensing to permits, we navigate the legal landscape so you can focus on what you do best. Plus, we handle corporate matters, business litigation, and even help you raise funds from investors. Don't go it alone. Call Regard Law Group today and let's make your vision a reality. Visit regardlawgroup.com for more information.
Limestone Farms bourbons are like a secret portal to a world of rich flavors where high proof meets smooth satisfaction. Every barrel is meticulously crafted and blended with a specific message in mind. Experience clean delineated flavor profiles that will have you engaged from the first sip to the final drop, making your palate beg for just one more taste. Limestone Farms, bringing heritage home.
Bourbon Life listeners, it's time we all get a little toasted. With Penelope Bourbon's Toasted series, of course. This unique blend is a testament to the power of experimentation. After full maturation in a charred new American oak barrel, their bourbon is finished in a secondhand freshly toasted barrel to create a delicious variety of chars and toasts with deep vanilla and caramel notes. No matter your preference, there's a toasted blend for you. Start your one-of-a-kind experience at penelopebourbon.com.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here tonight, special co-host, my good friend and Bourbon Life crew member, Stacey. Stacey, what's up?
Hey, I got special this time in front of my name. That's interesting.
If it's a crew episode, normally I'm really mean to you, right?
Yeah, typically. And typically my mom only tells me I'm special, so that's okay.
Oh, you're very special, Stacey. You know that. And I appreciate you sitting in, filling in for Matt, for lazy Matt. He just couldn't be here today, right?
Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sitting in and helping us out. So you doing okay otherwise?
Doing all right. Hey, can't complain. Not sitting at a computer for work. Instead, I'm sitting at a computer with some bourbon poured up in front of me. So it could be worse. Could be much worse.
That makes for a great afternoon right there. That's for right. Sure, right? Well, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. We couldn't bring you all this show every week with our great guests without the support of all those wonderful sponsors. So please check them out online. Be sure to follow them all on Facebook and Instagram and support them back for supporting us. And we really appreciate them. Stacey, with that said, do you want to tell everybody who we have with us on the show?
Absolutely. Really excited to talk to these guys today. We've got Cordell Lawrence, co-founder and CEO, and we also have Caleb Kilburn, the co-founder and master distiller from Eastern Light Distilling out in Morehead, Kentucky. What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Excited to talk a little bit of whiskey. We've got a few bottles poured up here and happy to talk through our wonderful industry.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. Been looking forward to this one. And, Caleb, it's funny because I had never had you on the show before. I had John, right? Single barrel. Wait.
John Waddell.
Yeah. John, yes, had John on the show a year or two ago, but had not had you on the show, man. So this is great. I'm glad we were able to remedy that and correct that, what I feel is a wrong. So glad to have you on here. So real quick, guys, first, we usually start just talking about what we're drinking up. And these were suggestions from you guys, which is great. So we appreciate you all making these suggestions. But the first one that we poured up here, this is the Four Roses small batch that we're going to be sipping on a little bit here to start the show out. And of course, this is 90 proofer. Ranging, I think the age range is right around between 6 and 7 years, if I remember correctly. This is a blend of, I believe, 4 of their 10 recipes. They do have 10 recipes there at Four Roses. I think the small batch is 4 of those blended together. So they have the low rye and the high rye mash bills that they put together. And then that small batch select, they came out with it in, I think, 19. That's 6 of those different recipes. But this is kind of their standard release, the Four Roses small batch. They've rebranded everything. They got these really cool looking new bottles and stuff. So really like that. Stacey, you know how I roll. I always throw it to Matt to see what he gets in the nose. So I'm going to throw it to you. What do you pick up?
I'm no Matt, but I'll give it my best shot.
You're probably better than Matt, right? Yeah.
No.
You're probably better than Matt.
No.
Right?
We aren't going to go there.
That.
No.
Yeah.
No. Matt has a really, really great palate. So
he does.
Matt, I'm not going to talk smack about you on this show. Maybe I'll wait till the next one. This bourbon is like a quintessential bourbon to me. I get a lot of like pie crust, like vanilla cream on the nose, a little bit of like a blackberry / apple influence there. I don't know if my mind's just gravitating towards like a apple turnover or what when I smell this, but it's very desserty to me without being overly sweet, with a little bit of light spice on the nose. Mark, how about you?
Well, I like it's a little more spicy to me. I think, Stacey, I get that a little bit more on the nose. There's that sweetness as well. Comes through maybe almost like cherry aroma to me, something like that. But there's that spiciness that comes into it as well. A little bit of that barrel influence. I mean, I think, again, 6 to 7 years old, I think. So we're getting a little bit of that oak influence potentially on there. But yeah, like you said, Stacey, I think, when you think of these quintessential type of bourbons, this is one of those that is just it's a well-rounded bourbon. It kind of hits all those notes, caramels, vanillas, et cetera. A little bit of fruitiness as well. But, Four Roses puts out some great products. So this little blend is and it's so affordable, and you can find it pretty much anywhere. So, all right, Caleb, I'm going to throw it to you. You want to jump in and share any nosing notes on that?
Well, you've already taken all the easy ones. So let's go a little,
that's how we roll, Caleb.
For me, I get like a well-worn leather in this. And for that, a lot of my notes are very experiential. So growing up, I was around horses quite a bit. And so when you would condition leather, it has this very faint citrus oil element to it with this really bright, salty, warm leather component to it. And so when I smell this and I get through the common notes and I get to something that's a little funky and a little weird, mentally, that's where it takes me to.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love the fact, I talked about that on an episode last week about how memories and things, even from childhood, whatever, that kind of, sipping on a bourbon or nosing a bourbon can spur those memories, forward. And you remember being a kid, being those certain situations. And I think that's really unique. What about you, Cordell? Anything that stands out on the nose for you?
Yeah, for me, same kind of thing as Caleb as far as experiential. So I almost think of like fresh cut wood. Kind of that vegetal quality of just cutting a limb off a tree or pruning a tree, and kind of that explosion of notes that come out of that.
I like that.
Yeah, definitely. So guys, let's talk about you. That's what we like to do on the Bourbon Life Podcast, especially our first round. So if you don't care, just take a second. Whoever wants to go first, just kind of tell us a little bit about, where you're from, your background, education, et cetera, how you got into the bourbon industry.
Sure. I'll take it off first. So born and raised in Louisville, and I was baptized in bourbon, I'll say. So we were involved in different aspects of the industry, kind of the hidden behind the scenes aspects. So distribution in the corporate offices. So for example, my mother worked at Burtner Smith, which was the precursor to what is now RNDC in Kentucky. In sales there and marketing there. A number of my aunts worked at Brown-Forman. So before it was hip and cool to go visit distilleries, that was a weekend activity where we would take the whole family and learn the history and learn how it related to Kentucky, and had an appreciation for that from a very young age. I always had a passion to be in our state's signature industry, and lucky to land at a licensing company out of college. I went to Transylvania University in your town of Lexington.
Yeah, Lexington.
And I worked for a company known as English Enterprise here in Louisville, and we did all the licensing and trademark work for Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark t-shirts, hats, apparel, tobacco-infused products, all the above. So that was a great training ground to then work for Doe Anderson, the creative agency record for Maker's Mark since the 1960s. So fortunate to sit in the same room with Bill Samuels, his son Rob, and really become a sponge and pick up a lot of knowledge along the way. Very fortunate for that. And then from there was recruited to work on the global marketing team for Brown-Forman, working across their whiskey portfolio, and was fortunate to travel to 6 of 7 continents. So every continent but
Wow.
Antarctica. I guess not enough scientists were there to consume the product and make a difference.
Bummer.
Just a really interesting experience. And then through a mutual friend actually at Brown-Forman, family friend there, introduced me to Mr. Taylor, Corky Taylor, who was resurrecting Peerless. And just had taken a lot of different interviews and different thoughts from people about kind of my next step in my career. And he was so compelling and so passionate about that family story of resurrecting the once great Peerless brand in Henderson, Kentucky, but now in downtown Louisville. The location, the history, the talent of Caleb Kilburn, who was just getting a start there, was hard to beat. It was kind of all the right elements, all the right assets in the right place. And basically, hey, you get a lot of say in what we're doing and control in what we're doing, partnership in what we're doing. Come aboard and let's see what happens. And eventually we become the best craft distillery in the world, according to Whiskey Advocate and a few others out there. And of course, Caleb's the Master Distiller of the Year, all the accolades from all the fine product he made there, and kind of individually headhunted during our time there. And we said, you know what, let's monetize this and let's help our industry as a whole and do the thing that we need to do. And that's kind of this A to Z services that we'll dive into shortly with Caleb.
Yeah, that sounds great. Speaking of family now, I saw somewhere you've got a pretty deep and rich connection to Kentucky through your family. Is that right?
I do. So my father's side is pre-Revolutionary War, through kind of that tip of Virginia that comes into Kentucky. We've done a lot of genealogical research on that front. And then by happenstance had a connection through my grandmother Ruth's family, Ruth Helen Evans, out of Carter County, which is Grayson is the county seat there. Farmers Hardware and a few other businesses there over the years. And that's the adjoining county to Rowan County, where Eastern Light is located. So just kind of a neat connection to that part of the state. It's like everybody had to, at some point, come through Eastern Kentucky and need to have that connection. So
no doubt. Well, that's where I'm from originally. I'm from Greenup County. My parents actually live in Elliott County now. So Grayson has spent a lot of time over there in Grayson, Kentucky on a lake and Grayson Lake. So all right. So tell me about you, Caleb. Tell our listeners about you and your background and everything.
So I was born and raised in Eastern Kentucky. I was just one county west of Morehead in Bath County, a little town called Salt Lick. And I was raised on our family's dairy farm. And for those of you who are not dairy farmers out there, it's twice a day, every day of the year, no holidays, sick days, vacations, good luck, figure it out. And it wasn't something where it's the usual, the parents have 6 or 7 children to run the farm. I was an only child. So I was worked like a barred mule growing up, but it was
lucky you.
It was an amazing way to grow up because when I actually entered normal workforce, I'm like, what are these things called? Weekends? This is amazing. But growing up in that environment, I was constantly having to fix and repair, and it gave me an amazing mechanical foundation for understanding how processes work. It helped me excel when I started studying chemistry and physics and biology. And when I first started school at Morehead State, I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I was laying the groundwork for being an engineer or a chemist or a biologist and all these different areas. And I decided to become a distiller and be all of those things. I fell in love with bourbon, not from the spirit or even drinking, because I was a goody two shoes that didn't drink at the time. I fell in love with it in regards to how it was made. So I started going out and shadowing different cookers and distillers. I started taking every distillery tour I could get in on. And I attended a 6-day course in Louisville at the Distilled Spirits Epicenter, Moonshine U. And I did not have the gift of the gab. I was a terrible networker, but I fell in love with the gentleman who was teaching the class. So these unsung heroes, these industry consultants, equipment providers, people who train and build distilleries regularly, took me under their wing and helped me let me see their craft. The following year, they helped me get my start at a young distillery called Kentucky Peerless to shovel gravel, move debris, do whatever needed to be done just to see the plant come together. And that experience was going to help me as far as understanding the industry overall. And I thought it would just be a great time to spend. Well, though I started the summer with very meager intent, by the end of the summer, the Taylor family had approached me about becoming their distiller. So I actually balanced my last semester of school with leading the production, development,
Wow.
and construction of Kentucky Peerless. I had a lot of amazing experiences there. I packed around a notebook with a to-do list and managed to train multiple disciplines because I just turned 23 at the time. And despite me being easily the youngest guy within the chain of command, thanks to my upbringing, thanks to the mechanical foundations and all the lessons learned, I was easily the one most prepared to take on all the tasks associated with production. So what started off as process piping and mechanical systems turned into distillery automation. And by the end of it, I was programming the central computer, creating
Wow.
mash bills, the production practices, and training the other distillers at Peerless. So over the course of my nearly decade there, in 2018 at Christmas, I became the youngest master distiller within the industry. A year later, we, as a distillery, won Global Craft Producer of the Year. I was very fortunate to get to go to London, England to accept that award.
Wow.
Nice.
And then a few years later, in 2023, I was crowned the Master Distiller of the Year. And this was technically an award that I shouldn't have even been eligible for because the stipulations are, so many years in the industry, so much career, so
Right.
much this. So even though my runway was relatively short, they felt like the impact I'd made on the industry and on the whiskey overall was pretty substantial.
Yeah.
That's
and
a huge
impressive.
honor. Huge
Yeah,
honor.
no doubt. And that was one of my questions for you actually next
Yeah.
was in terms, because you were named master distiller and you at the time were the youngest master distiller out there anywhere. And then you guys also win, or you win master distiller of the year in 2023. I mean, that's got to, I can't even imagine. Is there a way, can you describe that feeling and everything that goes along with that?
It's incredibly humbling. Yes, I'm very proud of what we've achieved within our careers, the whiskey that we've made, the lives that we've touched. But at the end of the day, we all are servants to our industry. We all want the same thing. We want to see bourbon grow, become this global powerhouse. And right now, we're on a hot streak. We have done a lot of really good things to build bourbon awareness globally, but there's still a lot to go. So when I'm standing in this room and they're announcing, they're going to talk about a Master Distiller of the Year, and there's all these greats surrounding me. I mean, I'm moments away from them announcing that Steve Nally's going into Bourbon Hall or the Whiskey Hall of Fame, and you have these industry stalwarts who it's unreal. So when they start reading the bio and the little lead up to get to the person, I'm like, man, started in college. That's weird. Oh, they did that. Like I was a solid 30. I was a solid 30 seconds into my bio before I realized that it was me because it was just so far outside of the realm of possibility that I would be considered for that, let alone win it. Yeah, so I'm looking around like, man, who else went to Morehead State? This is weird.
This is crazy, man. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know
meet
this.
this guy. He sounds cool.
He sounds awesome.
But yeah, it is incredibly humbling. The word I often use is blessed. There is no substitute for the journey I've been on, the amazing hands, the amazing people who have helped me on this journey. And it's humbling to take a step back and realize how many different turns and crooks and elbows my path had to take for me to end up where I am. So I've been very blessed.
I just think it's great, and I love the fact, as a fellow Eastern Kentuckian, I mean, there's always that sense of pride when you see somebody from your area that's doing great, man. So,
well, that's where we're so excited to be able to bring something back to there. So if there would have been a opportunity in Eastern Kentucky for something like this when I was coming up, I probably would have went there. But it's an area that often is overlooked within Kentucky, and it's something that's going to be so special for us to be able to provide a spotlight highlighting that region, not just because, hey, a distillery is going there, but what we serve is our community. We plan to be partners with the farmers, with the hardwoods, with the cooperages, with all the different partner brands that are going to call us home. And that's where Eastern Light is fundamentally going to have a different relationship with our community, our industry, and our clients than any other distillery out there.
Yeah. And, for me, it's something else that I can brag about being from Eastern Kentucky, other than saying that I'm from the same hometown as Billy Ray Cyrus. So,
there you go.
Well, hey, regional pride is something that's going to be a big part of what we're about, and that was already
Sure.
evidenced at our groundbreaking. So
Yep.
2 months ago, July the 2nd, we had what was the most heavily attended groundbreaking in the modern history of bourbon,
Wow.
which is a testament not just to, yes, bourbon is cool, but it's really how that community is embracing of us and the hunger for Eastern Kentucky to be a part of this industry, to be a part of the bourbon trail.
Sure.
It was
No, I
amazing.
think
You think about 54 counties of Eastern Kentucky, and they had business leadership from almost all those counties,
Oh, that's
mayors from
great.
small towns, because they
that's
see it
great.
as a regional project, as do
Yeah.
we, right? It's not about us, it's about serving Eastern Kentucky.
Well, and
Yeah,
oftentimes too, a lot of people, sorry to interject, but
You're fine.
a lot of people think of like, small town USA, like looking at Eastern Kentucky even
Right.
as like, there's not a lot going on out there. There's not much that, a distillery even could bring to that area. So the fact that you have the support from all of those local businesses and even the
Mhm.
farmers and everybody around there, I think that speaks volumes to what you guys are doing. So congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you.
Well, when the leadership around county first started recruiting me to bring a project there is years ago. And at first I was pretty apprehensive, like, hey, can a distillery really go out here and be competitive? And after going through the exercises, looking at the utilities, looking at the people, the resources that we had at our fingertips, I wouldn't build a distillery anywhere else. When
Wow.
we look at our home, where we're going to build Eastern Light, we have access to more water and better water, more grain and better grain. We have the ability to distribute our waste stream, our stillage, not as something that's been processed that we've had a huge carbon footprint in trying to boil away all that moisture from, but we can provide it as a cheap feedstock to local farmers.
Yep.
Mhm.
And because we're going to an area where it's not saturated with distilleries and there's very few cattle relative to our production, now we can actually be an aid to both the grain farmers and the cattle farmers in partnership with them.
No, I
Think
think
about
that's
this.
wonderful.
Think about this. So my family, in addition to doing the dairy, which we got bought out of when I was in high school, it was one of the deals where the cattle got purchased, but we kept the land. So we continued to farm soybean and corn.
Mhm.
So at harvest right now, us and many farmers in that river valley, what we have to do is put our commodities on a semi truck, take it 2.5 hours away to a barge, and then
Mhm.
empty haul 2.5 hours back. And what ends up happening is you burn a lot of diesel fuel and you burn through a lot of cash. It's roughly 75 cents a bushel is what that community is losing on a commodity that's currently around $4.50. So
Wow.
you think about how much money is being lost there. Now, when I say Eastern Light is going to be purchasing roughly 1 million bushel of grain in that community between corn and wheat, now all of a sudden we're injecting a $750,000 a year to those local grain farmers. But not just that, it's also the 5 hours of time per load that they're
Mhm.
Right.
keeping.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
think about that, that's 1,000 semis that are not making that trip.
Yeah, that's
That's crazy.
huge.
And the environmental impact that'll have as well. I mean, that's going to be
Exactly.
huge. Yeah.
So
Well, guys,
between
we're
that,
oh, go
we've
ahead.
got Independent Stave less than 1 mile from us. Again,
Right.
reduces that carbon footprint. It provides a better barrel because it's not had the mechanical looseness that 2.5 hours of traveling on the interstate introduces to a barrel. So
Yeah.
we're going to have better barrels. And then on the waste stream side, the fact that we don't have to boil away all that moisture, the fact that we're able to provide that as cheap feedstock to local farmers, it gives them a competitive advantage, or really not advantage, it just levels the playing field because they're competing against distillery fed cattle all across the state and across the country.
Mhm.
And it's been tough as a group
Sure.
that fed dry distillers grain growing up. It's very costly to have to truck it in, to have to provide it. Now we're able to level the playing field and make these local farmers competitive nationally.
Yep.
Well, that's great. Well, guys, we're at the end of round one, but let's jump back to this whiskey real quick and talk about the
Yes.
palate
Yes.
and the finish. before we close this round out. So Stacey, I'm going to throw it to you. I always, you're
I was
you're
going
the
to
Matt
throw it
today.
to you.
Nope, you're the Matt today. So I get to throw it to you. So what do you
Well,
get on the palate and finish?
I really want to hear what the guys have to say. So I'm just going to keep mine simple and boring again because I like to hear what they have to say. But a lot more spice comes across the palate than it did on the nose for me personally. I'm still getting a little bit of that dessert quality from this bourbon. But I'm getting also a lot more hints of like a citrus that come through personally for me.
Yeah. The spice comes through, and this is a combination of their mash bills. I don't know what the percentages are, but they do have that high rye. I think it's 36% on the high rye mash bill. And it comes across almost like a cinnamon. There's a sweetness to it. But then there's also like that almost cinnamon effect. It's really fun. I like it. The vanilla comes through as well. Obviously you get the standard bourbon flavors. I have forgotten how good this bourbon is.
I know it's been a while since I've had it too.
Yeah. I mean, a standard shelfer that you can find anywhere and is reasonably priced. It's funny because I get caught up on all these, there's an 18-year-old this or a 15-year-old this. And it's like, I got to get that. And then you start drinking those like, this is so good. And I sometimes forget that these are out there,
and they're on the shelves. On the shelves, ready to be picked up. Yep.
And you can mix this too. And that's the thing. Another thing for me is that, when you have an 18-year-old whiskey, you're not going to want to dump it into a old fashioned or anything else, or a paper plane or something like that, So a whiskey like this, you can drink it by itself, and then you can also mix it up, which is nice. So what do you guys pick up in terms of the palate and the finish?
Well, I love your mention of cinnamon. It was kind of a like a cinnamon reduction for me, almost like it'd been cooked on the stovetop a little bit of allspice in there possibly, but yeah, more spice on the finish for me for sure.
Yeah. Caleb, what about you?
If I'm going just very, very top line, I'd say yes, I identify like a dried citrus zest or citrus rind. But I tend to be very impulsive with tasting notes. So as you're talking through the citrus, you're talking through the cinnamon, you're talking through, in my opinion, I get like a good bit of like dried foliage. It's not necessarily an attractive note, but I get like potpourry.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that, I ate bowls of potpourri as a kid, but
yeah. Everybody gives potpourri a bad rap, but it's actually quite appealing from a sensory perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to go upstairs and open up my wife's potpourri bag.
I was going to say, does Anita have potpourri laying around here?
Pour a little bourbon in it. Have a little bourbon potpourri tea. No, I'm just kidding. No, great notes, guys. Great conversation there. But let's take a quick break.
Sure.
We'll get a word from our sponsors, and we'll come back with more with Cordell Lawrence and Caleb Kilburn with Eastern Light Distilling in just a minute. Welcome to Old Dominick Distillery, a family-owned craft distillery nestled in the heart of downtown Memphis. Founded by descendants of Domenico Canali, a pioneering Sicilian immigrant who made Memphis his home in the late 1800s, Old Dominick is steeped in history and tradition. Old Dominick prides itself on offering a diverse selection of whiskeys to satisfy every taste. Whether you're a seasoned connoisseur or a curious newcomer, you'll find something to love, including an 85 proof Tennessee whiskey, bonded Tennessee whiskey, a single barrel Tennessee whiskey, a 90.1 proof bourbon, and coming this fall, a cask strength bourbon. Each bottle of Old Dominick whiskey is crafted with care, featuring unique mash bills that offer a variety of high and low proofs. This dedication to quality ensures there's a perfect pour for every whiskey enthusiast. Old Dominick whiskeys are proudly distributed in several states, including Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Georgia, Arkansas, Illinois, and Mississippi. Can't find us locally? No problem. You can conveniently purchase our products online and have them delivered straight to your doorstep. Ready to explore the world of Old Dominick? Visit our website at olddominick.com to learn more about our history, discover our products, and find a retailer near you. Visit the historic James E. Pepper Distillery, located in the vibrant Distillery District in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. Initially built in 1880 by Colonel James E. Pepper, one of the founding fathers of the bourbon industry, it operated until 1967 when it was shut down and abandoned for over 50 years. After a decade of historical research, the brand was relaunched and the distillery was rebuilt. Distilling resumed on-site in 2017, using the same historic bourbon recipe as when it closed in 1967. The distillery offers a selection of fine whiskeys for tasting and retail purchases, including the award-winning Decanter Bourbon. Intimate guided tours include time in the museum, an up-close look at the grain-to-glass process, and a complimentary tasting. Stop by for an old-fashioned cocktail and see why TripAdvisor ranks the Pepper Distillery as the third best distillery in Kentucky and the #1 attraction in Lexington. Learn more at jamesepepper.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here tonight live in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, it is my good friend and special co-host, Stacey.
Hello.
Stacey, how you doing out there?
I'm doing great. I've got a pour a bourbon in, and we've got another one ready to go. So it's just getting better.
Yeah, you look a lot better than Matt. I may have to make this switch, just like, sorry, Matt.
Matt can't help it. Okay. Also, you're getting fresh out of the office, Stacey, today. Typically, I work from home, so we put a little bit of extra effort. That wasn't for you, Mark. That was for meetings.
That was for our guests. Well, thank you, Stacey.
Sure. You're welcome, guys.
Putting that extra effort in for our guests. We appreciate it. I'm sure they appreciate that as well.
I'm sure they do.
We are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support and the support of all of our sponsors. We couldn't bring you guys this show every week without their support. So be sure to follow those sponsors on Instagram and Facebook, if you would, and give them some support. Stacey, with that said, you want to tell everybody who we have with us today?
Sure. Well, we still have the same guys that were with us in round 1. They haven't left us yet. So hopefully they don't get wise and, run off on us. But we have Cordell Lawrence, the co-founder and CEO. And we also have Caleb Kilburn, the co-founder and master distiller of Eastern Light Distilling. So welcome back to round 2, guys.
Thanks for having us again.
We're ready for
it. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We've not lost a guest. Episode 242 now. We have. I was
going to say, you better knock on wood.
Yeah,
that's 1,000. That's good.
That's right. Appreciate that. So before we jump into what we're drinking in the conversation, Caleb, you had a kind of a fun story you wanted to share. We didn't get to it in the first round, but talking about the 4 roses, you want to tell us about that?
So one of my attachment points that was really special for me was an interaction with Al Young from 4 Roses.
Yep.
So a couple years into our barrel program, the single barrels at Kentucky Peerless, we were out there. We had a really good reception. A lot of people really liked what we were doing. And we get a call at the front desk with a gentleman who wanted to come and talk more about our program and learn about it. And at the end, when they're writing down the little notes on who he was, they're like, "Yeah, I'm Al Young." Cool.
Oh, that's all. No big deal.
That's all. And so when he actually comes there, he had heard great things about our program. He wanted to understand our philosophy, how we assembled, what we did. And I was like, "Oh, well, this is pretty special. This is awesome." And so he goes through and someone takes him through the history. Corky Taylor has an amazing story to tell. And so he tells it to Al Young. We get him through our fermentation, how we're doing the sweet mash, the different things there. And then when he comes to the still room, instead of him asking me questions, I was asking him questions. And so when he gets in there, I walk through just the normal things associated with the still, but then it's to the end when normally he would ask me questions, I start quizzing him on control loops and theories and how do you fix your steam? Do you vary the beer flow or do you vice versa? What do you think about reflux? And he kind of steps back and says that I heard about you. And he pulls out a stack of note cards that he had in his back pocket because he knew that I was going to be asking about flow rates and refluxes and percentages because that's the reputation apparently I have within the industry. I'm a bit of a process junkie. So
there could be worse things to be known for, though.
That's right. Yeah,
true. Fair statement.
So I want to know everything about how it works, where it works, who does this. Because all of us are making good bourbon. Like everybody in the industry right now, if you exist and you've had any sort of track record, you make a good product. But every one of them makes it differently. And I have this insatiable thirst to want to know, how does every single person do it differently and why is it good? So when you go to a Brown-Forman, for instance, they have very specific practices that they put into play into making their whiskey. And they make a good product. And then you'll go to a 4 Roses and it'd be completely different. And they make a good product. And then you'll go to a Jim Beam. And so every one of them have different signatures and fingerprints that you can see on their products. So the next product that we're going to try, the Wild Turkey, is one that, of course, being a kid growing up in Kentucky who's dreaming of being a master distiller, you idolize Jimmy Russell. That's a given. But when you actually look at the core concepts of what they do within the product, they do a low barrel entry proof. They do a very grainy mash bill. They do a relatively high bottle strength, and it really lends itself to a really full, robust whiskey. And so it's really fun, or it was when I was setting up Kentucky Peerless, to go through and almost dissect and cherry pick different philosophies and ideals from other distilleries. And now with the natural evolution of Eastern Light, it's that on steroids. We have the ability to go
Nice.
through and pick anything and everything that we like about all sorts of different brands and really help our clients go through and find their identity. So if I have someone come to us that wants a particularly spicy mash bill, well, let's play with it. Let's get some percentages in check and see what we can do. But it's not just in the mash bill, it's the mash bill and the yeast. It's the mash bill, the yeast, and how you distill it. It's the mash bill, the yeast, how you distill it, and how you barrel it. And then we're within the warehouse. So there's all sorts of different elements. And what we're able to do is help our clients pull way more levers than they would otherwise to really have an ownership on the spirit that they produce.
Yeah. And that's great. And that's what we're going to dive into this round too, which
Yes.
I'm looking forward to really understanding a lot more about that. But yeah, the Wild Turkey 101, great pour, solid. I mean, you can't say Kentucky bourbon without Wild Turkey 101, right? So this is, again, I want to make sure I got my notes right. 6 to 8 years old, I believe. Of course, 101 proof. Their mash bill is 75, 13, 12, I think is what I have. So hopefully that is right.
We also,
hey,
real
Stacey,
quick, I say real quick, I wanted to mention that today is 70 years for Jimmy Russell.
No, that's right.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's right.
Nice to include it today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've had the opportunity just to meet him once or twice. I've never really talked to him, but just such a legend. It's one of the he's one of those guys when you're in front of, at least for me, I get nervous. Like,
he's
it's
so
like
cute though. He's so cute.
They call him Bourbon Buddha is his nickname. I mean, he's
Bourbon
just
Buddha.
a great guy.
I love seeing the pictures on Instagram. People just randomly are in the gift shop or whatever, and there's Jimmy just happens to be there that day signing bottles, right? And
Caleb and I have been with him at so many events, traveled with him, and he's always so gracious, so kind, great guy.
Nice. Yeah,
he
seems like it.
Unfortunately, I haven't been at the distillery on a day where he's just chilling out signing bottles, but maybe I'll get lucky one of these days.
Somebody told me his wife gets tired of him being at home and tells him he has to leave and go. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I think that's kind of funny. So let's jump over to the nose on this one. I'm going to throw it to the guys this time, Stacey. So
all right,
you're not on the spot first. So whoever wants to, between the two of you, Caleb and Cordell, whoever wants to throw in some nosing notes on this, go right ahead.
To me, with turkey, it's always like I imagine as a kid when I was out there picking honeysuckle, and you pull the center out and you get that real intense, but it's sweetness, but it's not the sugary sweetness. It's almost like a floral sweetness, kind of a green sweetness to it. That's always turkey for me on the nose.
Very nice, man. Yeah. Very nice. I never thought about that before, but now that you say that, of course, growing up in Eastern Kentucky, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You pluck those blooms off and just, of course, you never can get full because there's very little nectar.
Gotta go for a lot. Yeah.
Have to throw in some blackberries off the bushes to, have a little sustenance there, right? So, all right, Caleb, what about you? What do you get on the nose on this?
So I'm a little less botanical. I get like a curing tobacco, which for me is always very sweet, almost syrupy. It has a hint of like a really bright cedar note to it as well.
Yeah.
So very botanical. I definitely get a lot of the greenery. I get more of the wilted curing greenery.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stacey, what about you? What do you pick up?
Well, I'm not trying to piggyback off of Caleb, but I also grew up raising tobacco on a farm with my family. Yes. So the curing tobacco was one that came out to me as well. And I always get that with turkey, but also get a lot of those like green notes that Cordell was talking about as well. I also get frosted flakes on the nose.
Okay. Sweetness, little corn influence, little sweetness on that.
Wild Turkey 101 is one that I keep in the house often, and the 101 rye. Love them both.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I was looking today, I texted Stacey and I'm like, I don't have a bottle of 101. I'm like, I did a training program about a year ago and I finished off a bottle. So I go back in my back room and I'm looking, I've got like 100, 200 bottles in the floor, randomly just in the floor. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh, wait, I do. I actually have a bottle of one.
Yeah, I was going to say
everybody
good
has
thing
to have a
because I was
bottle
out.
of 101, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I was out
Another
with mine.
accessible bottle, right? Easy to find.
It really is. And again, it's one of those ones you can drink it neat. You can drink it by itself. You could pour it in a cocktail and you don't feel guilty about, like, oh my gosh, I just spent poured a $250 bourbon into a paper plane or an old fashioned or something. Right. But those notes, the cedar, I like that note. I mean, there was like I see what you're saying on that one. The honeysuckle, I think, as well, because there's that sweetness that comes through, and I had never thought about that. But now that you've mentioned it, now of course the power of suggestion, right?
That's
It's
right. Oh
always
yeah,
there, but
it's there.
yeah. But I think that's a great description of the sweetness. And for people who haven't been fortunate enough to ever, drive down a country lane in the early summer when they're blooming and your windows are down, and you just catch that aroma of
it's
those
great.
honeysuckles.
Oh yeah.
It's an incredible experience. So I mean that, and again, that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, taking you back to certain places or childhood or whatnot. It's bourbon has that magical ability, and it's something I just really love about it. So guys, let's talk about the distillery. You've talked about it a little bit. So I mean, you both have what a lot of people would probably consider to be dream jobs where you were, and then you get this idea like, hey, we're going to start this. So can you kind of talk about that process of making that decision to leave where you were and to start this new distillery?
Well, when we came out with Peerless and things were going splendidly, we built it up really quickly, really successfully, both in regards to the marketing, the strategy, the distribution on Cordell's side, and then on the product from my side. And with success comes the headhunters, the door knockers, the people who want to find a way of taking whatever secret sauce you had and applying it to their brand, their venture, their conglomerate. And some were easy to stiff arm, others were more difficult. But the common thread was, hey, we've got all these people coming to us with very legitimate problems that, yes, we could go inside of their organization and solve, but why don't we create our own entity and solve it as a partner rather than an employee? So
Yeah.
what we did is we decided to found Eastern Light Distilling, and at its core, yes, on paper, we're a contract production facility that's going to make a large volume of barrels at a really competitive price at a superior quality. But there's so much more to it than that. What we want to do is we want to provide a layer of transparency and partnership that's probably not very common within this industry for the majority of people. So when you go to us as a contract distiller, we want to invite you as a brand to call us your home. We want to invite you to affiliate with me as a distiller. We want to invite you into the gift shop. We want you to have your own tours, your ability to host single barrel selections. We really want to be a safe place for you to create your image, your brand, and really foster your success. So, in addition to, yes, we make spirits, Cordell can assist with the marketing, the direction of your company, your portfolio management. I can help you formulate different mash bills, different flavors, aromas, blends. And it could be as prominent of a partnership as you want, or we can be as silent and really take the back seat. For some people who already have distillers, who have a facility that's maybe not equipped to handle all of their production, we want to invite you in to figure out how you can put your fingerprints on our equipment to create your product, just utilizing our throughput, our scale, and efficiency. For others, it may be that they have a long-standing relationship with a blender that we have to figure out how we can create the right
Yep.
feedstock for them to continue their pursuits. What we want to do is not view our clientele as the competition and preclude them from saying where it's made, how it's made, or having any affiliation with us. We want to provide everything and anything that they need. And that was really the core mission of Eastern Light. What we wanted to create was this solutions hub on which multiple brands, multiple identities could succeed and thrive.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool, the experience that you both have. I mean, Caleb, you've got your skill set, master distiller, mechanical, et cetera. And Cordell, you obviously have your business experience and background and all that knowledge. And to bring that together, but it sounds like you're basically offering all those services pretty much on the table, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Anything
Well,
and
then-
everything is on the table. And one thing that's really important to us is we're not forcing everyone to take everything. If we have someone who comes to us that they don't even need production, they don't even need marketing, I'm helping somebody with an RO water system. Great. I'll help them make their distillery better. And I'm happy to do
Yep.
that.
Well, and I think that's going to be something that really sets you guys apart from other contract distilling companies, honestly, because a lot of times you just get one package deal. You're either all in or you're out. So I think that that's awesome that you guys are offering that.
And
Yeah.
candidly, from a creativity standpoint, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, because now I get to flex all those creative muscles on the
Right.
creation side, and Cordell does on the product development side. So there may be a brand that could never live within the portfolio that we may develop, that is amazing in its own right, that deserves to be in the world, that we can help create and someone else gets to enjoy. There's going to be opportunities for single malts and rye and 4-grain mash bills and 5-grain mash bills, sweet mashes, sour mash, blends of different yeasts, all sorts of different information that we're able to assemble and pull all these different levers. So each of our clients truly have their own identity and own profile that they get to have ownership of.
And also
Yeah.
benefit from the purity of the ingredients of that region.
Right.
Yes.
As well, be it the water, be
Yep.
it the grain, right?
Yeah. So in addition to that, so you're going to be contract distilling, but you guys are going to be doing your own distillate as well. Is that right?
We are roughly going to lay down about 10% of the production is going to be going into our ledger. That's going to
Okay.
fuel eventually some joint venture brands, some brands that will be under the Eastern Light ownership and management. But one thing that we're going to be very careful in is no point is our brand greater than or less than any of our clients. Everyone that
Sure.
we are working with, we're in partnership. We are equals, same footing, same prominence throughout.
Love that.
Which is great. Yeah. I mean, because you don't want to partner with people and then have them think, oh, well, they're just, they're going to put us at this sub tier and not give us the quality, or, give us the same thing that they make for themselves, so, but that's great. You guys have already thought that through and have that figured out. Now the name Eastern Light, I know that has some significance to you guys. Can you kind of talk about what that name means and how that, what that means to the public and to your clients you're going to be working with?
Oh, sure thing. So when we sat down to decide what we wanted to name this distillery, it was about a 4-month exercise of a lot of creatives, a lot of people, friends, family, all working together to figure out, okay, what does this actually need to be and what does it need to represent? And so we had a few near misses where we got really close and then backed off of other concepts. But when we landed on the concept of aligning with the rising sun, giving a nod to Eastern Kentucky, the promise of a new day, half the world's civilizations at some point have aligned with the sun comes up and we will be here. And that sort of reliability we think is the foundation for what we're able to provide with Eastern Light. So for us, it's the promise of a new day, the dawn of a new day, illuminating the possibilities and the potential in Eastern Kentucky. And plus, the sun always rises in the east, giving a nod
That's
to
right.
our geography and our region.
No, I think that's great. And I love it
that.
because, and like, again, that nod to Eastern Kentucky as well, we get the sunshine first over there before everybody else in the state gets it.
Well, and our campus is stunning, right? 230 acres. It's the first elevation
Yeah.
rise in what they call the Cumberland Plateau leading into the Appalachian Mountain Range. So that's going to benefit us in terms of the maturation of the barrels. Of course, a beautiful sunrise and sunset, sunrise in the east and sunset in the west, but kind of all fits within that ecosystem in terms of the agricultural ecosystem we're building there at Eastern Light.
Yeah.
So our
Yeah.
corn is grown just miles away off of the bluff. The barrels are assembled less than 1 mile from us. The hardwoods that fuel the stave mill is less than 13 miles from us. The cattle that we'll be feeding is right in our backyard. And by virtue of us being right on I-64, we're less than 3 miles off of the interstate. We will be the first and last stop on the Bourbon Trail for the entire Mid-Atlantic, giving us an
I love
excellent shipping
that.
route.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you guys then you're going to be right there off the Morehead exit there off
They're
64.
Sharkey Farmers. So it's exit 1.
Sharkey
Oh, okay,
Farmers.
yeah.
Yeah.
So from Lexington, you're talking about less than an hour away, 45, 50 minutes.
Well, and it's a beautiful drive out there too. So that's
stunning drive.
exciting.
Yeah.
It's really
And then
exciting.
you can go to Cave Run Lake if you get off at Sharkey Farmers, right?
Cave Run Lake, Daniel
Yeah.
Boone National Forest, that's all right there.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful place. People that haven't experienced it. I mean, it's, and what a great excuse now to even, head over there to check out the new distillery and things. So well, guys, we're almost to the end of round 2. So let's jump back over to the whiskey, the Wild Turkey 101. Let's talk about the palate and the finish. Stacey, I'm going to throw it to you first on this one. What do you get in palate and finish on this?
So this one, I just put delicious as my tasting notes. No, I love Wild Turkey 101. It's nutty, it's spicy, but not overly spicy. You get the oaky influence from it. Also get a little bit like leather tobacco notes from it, but it's not overpowering. I think that this is a very well balanced pour. I will never shy away from Wild Turkey 101.
Yeah, it's funny because I never really realized in terms of nuttiness, and I kept getting this nuttiness, and I'm like, I don't remember that before on turkey, but I kept getting this nuttiness, and it was almost like, is it candy bar? Which one is it? Three Musketeers? Does that have nuts?
No, that one doesn't have nuts
That's
in
just
it.
chocolate.
Yep, that's just straight chocolate and whipped chocolate on the inside.
Which one has like nougat and caramel and nuts?
Snickers.
A Snickers bar without the chocolate. Because I'm getting all these like sweet notes, like almost like a nougat type of, and the caramel comes across. But then there's also that spicy. Again, this comes across almost like a cinnamon to me. So it's almost like someone has whipped in cinnamon to a Snickers bar without chocolate on it.
Interesting take.
Yeah, I know, kind of crazy.
It's like you're leading into the Halloween candy episode.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm ready.
Hey, that's a good idea. I like that.
See?
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know that you're kind of describing a payday, but I don't get payday vibes from it.
Yeah, I got you. So what do you guys pick up on this one?
For me, it's a lot of that candied tobacco note still around.
Okay.
There's a lot of really nice, like high florals. So you were describing cinnamon. A lot of times I'll get like, if you get a really hot pine or evergreen note, a juniper, something that's really bright on the kind of the woody elements. I get that as a form of spice, like the same way different herbs can be spicy.
Okay.
Rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But again, the big ticket items, of course, is for me, I get a good bit of like citrus oil. I get a good bit of something I didn't say in the nose. Turkey is always very barrel forward for me. It is beautiful, charred, fresh barrel, expressed in whiskey. So that toasted oak, that toasted sugar, the really earthy elements with the oak, I love it.
And for me, it's a lot of kind of the evergreen kind of notes for me as well.
Okay.
Like a little bit of menthol as well, kind of with that barrel character.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, very nice. Well, guys, we're at the end of round 2 here, so let's take a quick break. We'll get a word from our sponsors, and we'll come back with more with Cordell Lawrence and Caleb Kilburn with Eastern Light Distilling in just a minute.
Hey there, I'm Carrie Van Winkle, founder of Pappy & Company, where we celebrate family heritage and Southern craftsmanship. Check out our curated collection of artisanal goods that embody the spirit of Kentucky. From our signature barrel-aged pepper sauce aged in Pappy Van Winkle bourbon barrels to our luxurious leather goods inspired by generations of tradition, each item reflects our commitment to quality and legacy. Our line of gourmet food items are thoughtfully selected to bring the taste of the South to your table. Indulge in what I can say is the best bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup on the planet. A perfect blend of buttery rich flavors that elevate any dish or cocktail. We're big fans of the Bourbon Life Podcast, and we're honored to share the legacy of our great-grandfather Pappy Van Winkle with all of you. So visit pappyco.com for 15% off your purchase with code BourbonLife15.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The 3 Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.3chordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the third and sadly final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, still here in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, with my good friend and special co-host, Stacey. Stacey, how you doing out there? I call it the green room, even though it's not green. But
Yeah,
how
it's
you
not
doing out
green.
It's not. How you doing in the yellow room or the gray room?
I'm doing great. It'd be better
Awesome.
if some of these bottles were open, though. There's some good stuff behind me there.
Most of those bottles are open, but
Somewhere else. They might be in a closet somewhere. Who knows?
Instead of green room, you need to do amber room or something.
There you go.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, but we're having a great time tonight. Having a great show.
Also, Mark, I'm just going to point out, I'm a little salty. You look way more tan than me. You're in like a dark lit room, whereas you got like this spotlight on me, and I'm not digging it. So
it's just
no wonder why
high
Matt's
blood
not
pressure.
here today.
It just brings color to my face, Stacey. Don't be jealous. All right.
My blood pressure is elevated too. I just came from work, so it's fine.
All right. Well, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. They allow us to bring you great shows like this one every week. So we appreciate their support. Please check them out on Instagram and Facebook. Give them a like and a follow. We'd really appreciate you doing that for us. So with that said, Stacey, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
They're back for round 3, guys. They didn't leave.
Yes.
Our streak continues on. We've got Cordell Lawrence, the co-founder and CEO. We also have Caleb Caleb Kilburn. Let me try that again. Co-founder and master distiller from Eastern Light Distilling in Morehead, Kentucky. Thanks for coming back, guys.
Thank you.
Wouldn't miss it.
I keep saying that as if like we've lost people, but as aforementioned, we have not yet.
We always come back.
This round, we got something special poured up, because after this round, we might lose everybody. I don't know, because we're drinking something good on this. We got the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, which is one of my favorites. Doesn't matter the expression. Doesn't matter if it's a private barrel. I don't care where it comes from. I'm going to add it.
Nor the age expression, right?
Yeah, that's right. No more age expression on that one either. But this one we're drinking, Stacey, you and I are drinking the C923, which is kind of funny because last year, late in the year, Heaven Hill announced it won't focus on that.
Yes, it will.
It
Hey,
look at that.
Look, I know what I'm doing sometimes.
I set the autofocus. There you go. So Heaven Hill dropped the age statement on these from 12 years, just dropped it. And then they came out with the C923, which was 13 years, 7 months. Everybody went kind of crazy about that one. Right? Yeah, this one came in at 133 proof. So it's a super high proof. You can see, obviously, the color on this one, much darker. One of my favorite bourbons. There's no question about the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So, Cordell, I appreciate you suggesting this one.
One of my favorites. My dad and I always enjoy this together. Awesome pour.
Yeah.
I was going to say, tell us what batch you guys are sipping on.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what batch you guys have there?
A119 and 135.2.
Wow. Going back a few years.
Yeah.
Theirs is more hot than ours, Mark. They're ready to end this on a real high note.
Man, I'm not used to being outproof, man. Thanks. Now, Caleb, we were talking off camera though a little bit before we jumped on here, talking about the age statement, and they dropped it, and then they came out with this 13-year, 7-month. But you had a good point, man. You want to share that with everybody?
Well, for me, as a creator, when it comes to actually blending barrels together, sometimes an age statement is a bit restrictive in regards to what you can actually do with the whiskey. And I'll give an example. Sometimes you may taste a 10-year-old barrel that may taste way beyond mature, and it may be a liability. It may become over-oaked or lose some of that specialty if you hold it too long. On the flip side, you may have a problem child that needs to wait until 14 to get to the maturity of the 10-year-old. So when you're actually blending and selecting, everybody says age is just a number. When it comes to whiskey, it really is. Focus on the profile, focus on the flavors, what can come together. Now, I understand that, yes, we've got to throw some age statements on there to make sure no one's selling a 6-month-old over-oaked whiskey. It's in a tiny barrel or something. So there is a time and a place and some core credentials that must be met. But in regards to actually creating the profile, sometimes the age statement can become a little restrictive and stifle creativity.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And it's something, as a consumer, a lot of times I just don't think about, because I get so focused on age statement. Oh, it's a 12-year-old, it's a 15, it's a 18 or it's 6 or whatever. Okay. And don't think about it. So I appreciate you sharing the perspective from a master distiller's point of view, which makes a big difference. So that's really cool. Stacey, I'm going to throw it to you in terms of the nose on this one. What do you pick up?
This is lovely. I'm getting a lot of like dark cherry. And I'm going to go back to something that Cordell had said earlier. It's more like a reduction to me versus like a dark cherry itself. It's more like if you were to like boil some on the stove and let it cook down into a reduction syrup. Also getting some influences of tobacco, leather, and oak.
Nice.
The quintessential, as these guys like to say, the basic notes.
That's right.
Yeah, and this, the cherry comes
really
through to
nice.
me. It seems like on the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, cherry just is always just that note that comes through, that dark cherry that comes through. I like that, you said cooked down. I mean, it's very almost syrupy on the nose on this one, which I really, really like that one. I almost always get like a brown sugar or some type of a
Yeah.
dark sugar, almost even like a burnt sugar.
Yeah, I was going to say
flavor.
Brulade sugar. You stole my note.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Look at that.
Brulade.
Master Distiller Mark.
There you go.
Yeah. But that's about it for my tasting notes. So I'm going to throw it to you guys. I stole yours there, Caleb. Sorry about that. You got anything else in the...
For me, it's Brulade sugar and like a cherry cocktail bitter. Because I definitely do get a lot of alcohol in this one. Not in a way that's negative. It's just very prominent. But at 135 proof, it deserves that.
True.
Yeah.
It's earned it.
For sure. And then on me, I get kind of a cherry wood and then almost like an almond bitter, like almond extract.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Nice combination.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very nice. And again, this is what, I mean, it doesn't matter which expression, which batch it is. I mean, I'm always going to get a lot of those similar notes from batch to batch, I think. And it just depends, some of them get accentuated more than others. But this 923 was really one of my favorites, probably one of the better ones that I think I've had in the past few years on the Elijah Craig barrel proof. So guys, let's talk about a little bit about the decision to leave. You were at these jobs. Can you just talk about, I mean, was it a difficult decision for you guys to do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, the Taylor family has been blessings in both of our lives. They've been amazing people, amazing partners. And I remember when we sat down and had the conversation with Corky specifically that we were looking at taking on this venture. And you never know how that's exactly going to go, because these are people that I openly say that I love, I hug, I call all the time. And for you to sit down and say like, hey, I'm thinking about doing my own thing, you never know how that's going to go. And immediately it wasn't well, we need to talk about this, or guys, you don't need to pursue it. It was immediately buying like, guys, how can I help? This is absolutely amazing.
Aww.
This is going to be so good for you, so good for your family, so good for everything. And just the way they approached that entire situation, class acts, and I think it was a master class on both sides on how you can walk away from a scenario and leave it for the better, and that scenario can also benefit both parties.
Absolutely.
So we stuck around, we helped train replacements, we continue to be resources for them. I get calls regularly of like, hey, like, where was this part, or why did we set this up that way? And I'll always be a resource for them. So it was something that you never know exactly how it's going to go, but it was nothing but support, love, and compassion from their side. And we're blessed to have had them in our lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Cordell?
Friends throughout. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Consider Corky a mentor of mine. Taught me a lot about business and strategy in particular, as far as negotiations. Given his background kind of outside the industry, taking a very unorthodox approach in our industry, kind of allowed me to expand my skill set in a lot of ways. And he's just a great resource. He's always there to listen, always there to advise, or just be a sounding board and not judge, kind of meet you where you're at and kind of say, this is the advice I have for you going forward. And he's always very honest about it. And I always appreciate that.
And that's not, I mean, you've got a lot of, both of you guys have a lot of experience, but it's always nice to be able to surround yourself with people that are out there that are willing to support you, but have experience as well.
Exactly.
I mean, rising tides raise all ships, right? I mean,
exactly,
kind of the way to look at it. So, but that's really cool that you guys have that. So let's talk about the distillery itself. Can you talk a little bit about the acre? It's like what, 240 acres or something like that?
230 acres, correct.
Yeah. So the distillery itself, was it like 50,000 square feet? Is that right?
It'll be roughly 50,000 square foot within the main facility. This will encompass the tourism elements, the business side, but primarily it's going to be focused on production. So it's going to be cooking, the fermenting, the distilling, barrel filling, and all the mechanical and logistical elements that have to back that up. Outside of that, we're going to have a number of rick houses on the main campus. And currently we're weighing out where the best site for a bottling facility is going to be. We've currently got a couple different squares on the board that we can move around and make fit. And fortunately, we don't have to make that decision up front. That's something that we can grow into and decide later.
That's good.
Yeah. But that's really cool that you guys will be able to do all of that, on site and not have to ship. You talked about the shipping earlier and transporting everything and the cost and the expense and the time involved with that. I mean, but to have all of that right there on site. I mean, that's just got to be great, right?
It's a nice comprehensive distilling campus, from beginning
Yeah.
to end, which is
Well,
exciting. Yeah.
well, and one of my questions too, to kind of like elaborate on that a bit, you guys talked about the impact you guys are going to have on the community when you're talking about farmers and, sourcing grain from local farmers and then ability to, give some of that grain back, after it's been fermented. But what are you guys looking at employment wise within the community? Do you guys have any like rough numbers of how many you guys are going to be able to employ yet?
50 full-time employees,
Oh, that's
paying an
great.
industry wage, bourbon industry wage brought to Eastern Kentucky.
That's
And
great.
and this is at the first iteration, which is like the core development of the business. When we add retail and tourism, there's probably another 20 jobs. When we add bottling, there's probably another 30 beyond that. So the wages that we're planning to bring to the area are consistent with the industry. Currently, there's a lot of people who live and work in that community who on a daily basis are having to drive to
Right.
Yeah.
Winchester
Sure.
or Lexington or
Yep.
Georgetown
Yep.
to get
Yep.
good wages. So think about this. At maturity, when we're 100 employees strong, which I have ambitions of being more than that, but let's just say it's the 100. If we're able to take those 100 people and keep them from having to drive an hour and a half each direction and give them a competitive wage, now they're not having to pay for fuel or losing
Yep.
time on that drive.
Right.
If you assume that there's no monetary value to just that, and it's just the fact that they get 3 hours of their life back on any given day, that is 300
I mean,
man hours a day that get plumbed into the community, into little league
mhm.
fields, into marriages,
Sure.
into individuals' health.
Yeah,
So what we're going to be
absolutely.
able to do with just the impact of giving people time, that's a currency that no one else is currently giving them in that area.
No, I think
So
that's huge, and that speaks volumes to what you guys are building out there. So,
Mhm.
congratulations to you. I think that's
Thank you
wonderful.
so much.
the
Yeah.
people of Eastern Kentucky, even the ones that we won't directly touch with employment, look at just the halo effect that it should have in regards to the local tourism
Right.
aspects.
Sure.
Recent study says between us and a few other projects in that area for Round County, which for those of you not in state of Kentucky, there's 120 different counties in Kentucky. Round County is not a particularly large
Yeah.
one, but it just within our county, they're expecting the tourism revenue to grow over the next 5 years around $50 million.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So you think about the impact that's going to have on local small businesses, the employment that generates, the housing, the land value. It puts a spotlight on our home place. And that's just making some very meager assumptions. When you look into what should be coming down I-64 and people stopping off the interstate who may
Yeah.
daisy chain a visit at a restaurant with a trip to Cave Run, with a trip to the National Forest, to hopefully a trip to the distillery. Now, all of a sudden, we're building this ecosystem of success and prosperity.
Well,
Well,
not
not
to mention,
only,
Yeah.
I
oh,
was
go
going to say real
ahead.
quick, not to mention the aerotourism as well. So actually at the end of our property adjoining it is a Morehead Rowan County Airport that has a 5,500
Oh,
foot
okay.
runway. So we
Ah,
have flown key stakeholders, investors into that property. So
Nice.
those people that have the means to private travel that way, fly private, they can fly in there and have a nice experience in that community. So that's
sure.
going to be kind of the only one of its kind available in the country.
Well, and not only
Yeah.
that, you all are close to Morehead University where you went to school, Caleb.
Yeah.
So do you all have any plans to kind of bring in anything with the university? I mean, I know that you guys are in very early stages, but to see this through fruition,
Yeah.
you know,
So I actually had coffee with the university president about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Awesome guy. We talked through different community partnerships, co-ops, abilities to get students involved. And there's another college that's there very close, and that's the community technical college system. Maysville
hmm
Community Technical College
Mhm.
System
Yeah.
has a campus less than 2 miles away from our facility. So between engineers and chemists and business and all sorts of other elements related to hospitality associated with the main university, as well as people who are looking at hospitality, technical services, maintenance, mechanical, anything related to that trade school is also going to be people that we hope to draw on.
I think that
Some of the
that's wonderful.
contractors that we're actually looking at utilizing to build out the facility have ambitions of taking fresh graduates off of the electrical and mechanical side of that campus incorporate them into the team that builds the distillery, and then flip them to us as maintenance technicians at the end. So there's all
Wow.
sorts of different elements, that ways that we plan to partner to develop this workforce instead of just hiring someone on the other end of the state to drive in to get it. We really want this to be as homegrown as possible. And that means local trades, local people helping to build the facility, and eventually local people to help staff it.
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, like obviously being from Eastern Kentucky, I mean, it's a sense of pride. I mean, it's great to see that you guys are doing this for that region, because it needs it.
Yeah.
You know, there's not been a lot of great economic news, you know, that comes out of that area. So this is something that was huge when it was announced last year. I was just thrilled for you guys and for the region, knowing that you guys are gonna do this. So
Well, we're
that's
playing to
really
the
great.
strengths of the region, right? So a lot of
Absolutely.
Right.
a lot of that
Right.
knowledge and the assets are there.
Right.
We're just kind of one of those missing puzzle pieces that brings kind of those
Right.
things together.
No, I think that's I mean, that's just great. So I'm glad you guys are doing it. So let's talk about, because we're almost at the end of the round. Damn, that's
Sorry.
crazy. no,
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 great
it's like
conversation. Enjoyed it. Yeah.
I know I looked at my timer and I'm like, oh man, so many questions I could ask. But so let's kind of talk about your own distillate. I mean, you talked about opportunities to do things with other brands, or, you know, people that work with you all. But from your perspective, Caleb, as master distiller, is there anything, I mean, any type of expressions that you're interested in that you think you're going to pursue, or can you tell us what you might be doing?
The short answer is everything. So I'm incredibly excited to get into single malts. I'm excited to try different
I
rye
was just going to
expressions.
ask you
That's
if you're
so
going to do
awesome.
ASMs.
Yeah,
Yes.
why wouldn't we? We have
Sure.
everything on site to process cereal grains and alcohol. Of course, I want to try that.
Awesome.
Of course, I want to try 4-grain mash bills. I'm excited to put my take on different sour mash variations, different yeast cocktails, different
Oh,
barrels,
I love that.
different grades. Like I have so many different levers that I get to pull. And it's going to be in some partnerships with some of the best and the brightest throughout the industry. Because the same way we may be master marketers or master distillers, uh, there's master coopers out there who are going to say, like, hey, why don't you try this type of toast profile in
Yep.
this barrel? We're going to be working with some of the global powerhouses in regards to yeast and saying, like, hey, like, if you could choose, if you want to have this end result, what strain do you select to get there? There's all sorts of different varietals, and we plan to partner with them and be actually kind of the case study to showcase how they're able to create these specialty items, and they see us as a reputable place to help them gain that credibility.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I'm excited to hear that. And I had it listed here, ASM. So it's like, I
Yeah.
definitely wanted to ask about that. And I'm kind of coming over to that, you know, I'm becoming a fan of
I was gonna say it's
different
taken you a
expressions.
while, Mark, but we're
It
bringing you
has.
to the dark side.
You're bringing me over to the dark side of American single malts, but
Well, there's also some different philosophies that you have to put in play. And this is where it's not enough to say, okay, bourbon distillery, I'm just going to change out the mash bill and do everything else the same way. You've
right.
got to ferment it differently. You got to distill it differently. You got to put it in a slightly, maybe different barrel. You have to have different expectations on how long it needs to age and mature, because some of those really bright, high floral notes, they're not going to work themselves out in 3 or 4 years, probably. It's something that you have to adjust expectations. Where it's at within the rick house, and the experimentation is probably the thing I'm most excited about in this entire adventure, is the fact that we get to go through and help each individual brand, because our distillate is going to be the vast majority. It's going to be tiny, tiny in the global scheme of Eastern Light Distilling. What we get to do is help our clients find their flavor.
Sure.
So it's going to be working through them as almost a representative, as helping them on the journey as they go through and pick the different elements of, like, ooh, well, I want more of this note from the barrel. And we get to help them interact with Independent Stave to say, okay, well, we think that we're going to do that with this toast profile and this selection of oak. When we work through different yeast, we'll get to go through a wide breadth of different providers, but narrow in on the strain, the cocktail that's going to help them create that right profile. When we're distilling, we can range the proof high to low to fast to slow, and really change all the different elements of what the distillate is going to come off with and its characteristics. And every one of those are elements that we get to help our clients customize. It's not submit us your recipe and then the curtain comes down and
Right.
a couple of weeks later, hey, here's your barrels, by the way. No, we want them to be intimately involved with this entire process. And at the end of the day, because of that collaboration, they're going to have something that when they go out and they are ready to sell, they had their fingerprints on, they have the pride in, they can say, oh, well, we did this proof because this one was a little too spicy and that one didn't have enough flavor. They can say, oh, well, we started off with this yeast and a week later we pulled the plug and said, no, it's this one. Like, those are the elements that we think that are going to be special. Those are the interactions that really give the credibility to a non-distilling brand to say, no, I actually did have a role in this. I did have a stake in this.
Yeah, infinite customization meets bleeding edge innovation, right?
Right.
Those two things, those two concepts together, and you kind of avoid the overlap, the sameness that's been out there in the industry a lot. And all of a sudden you can create little niches for people where it creates competitive advantages for them to succeed in the marketplace.
Yep. I think that's awesome. I'm excited for the brands that are going to work with you guys to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's really easy for me to talk about the elements that I represent in this, but the same level of customization and partnership and innovation that you see on the distilling side, Cordell's going to be utilizing on the marketing, branding, and select services side.
That's a big part of what we're doing as well. Yeah, a lot of people, have interesting ideas, unique concepts, but really are never given the chance to kind of put those forward, be it at a craft distillery or larger conglomerate. So we have already begun a lot of that work and we'll continue that work. And it kind of gives us an interesting point of view globally around the industry in terms of trends that are happening, things that are kind of flash in the pan trends versus things that are more sustainable trends, and ways that we can help fuel that growth over time. And to kind of wrap this up towards the beginning of the conversation, grow our industry holistically, and bring, kind of enlarge the pie for everybody, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when will you guys be up and running officially?
It'll be early Q1 of 26 is when we'll be distilling, but the services that we're providing has already commenced. So we're already helping with brands, already helping with products, already helping with everything related to people achieving their dreams within whiskey. We're already out there.
A great example, if you go to oxmorebourbon.com, that was one of our earliest clients. Yeah, great product, NDP brand, but really the inception story of Kentucky as a Commonwealth, right? So the Kentucky Constitution was written in the 1700s portion of that home. And then also they have a bourbon history walking tour within the premises of the house. But imagine a house that has 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s, 3 distinct editions. One family that lived in that house from the 1780s until 2005.
Oh, wow.
And their impact on the bourbon industry. So they wrote the Bottled and Bond Act. They wrote the TAP decision in 1909, the Food and Drug Safety Act. They touched it from various legal angles, if you will, over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I've seen people posting about the Oxmoor bourbon, so I've not had it yet, but looking forward to trying that one for sure. But that's great. You guys are already doing that.
Yep.
Very cool. So guys, we're at the end of the round. Let's jump over to the whiskey real quick. Finish up talking about this Elijah Craig. Stacey, what do you get? Palate and finish.
Oh, of course, you're going to throw it back to me.
Of course I'm going to throw it to you.
Well, I've been too enthralled with the conversation here, but what I wrote down, I'll just tell you. It's spicy on the palate. Obviously, you got a higher proof here, so it's a lot more spice is going to come through. I'm getting a little bit of creme brulee influence there on the back, a little bit of leather, chewing on that leather glove softball mark note that you like to throw out there.
That's one of my favorite things to say when I get leather on something. It reminds me of being a kid playing baseball, standing out in the outfield, bored to death because nobody's hitting the ball out there, and I'm just chewing on my
what
glove.
Position did you play?
I played center field when I was a little kid.
Okay.
Yeah. So
they didn't put you in left field.
I'm so bored. So yes, I do know what leather.
I was infield, so mine was a little saltier. It had that
right.
dust on it.
That's right. The infield dust on it. Yeah.
So I was gonna say I played shortstop, so mine was a little saltier too.
Yeah, you guys got the action, man. I was out in the outfield as a little kid, and like nobody ever hit the ball out there. So
when I was real little, I was out there stomping bumblebees just like you. But when it heated up, I was at second for a while, and I retired and stepped away from it.
Yeah. So what do you guys pick up on yours on the palate and the finish?
if you would tell me that just blind taste that this was some like cherry bitter barrel finish or this was some incredibly affluent cocktail, I'd believe you. Like the amount of florals, the bitters, the bite,
Yeah.
the way this comes across, it almost drinks more like a well-crafted cocktail than it does a whiskey.
Wow.
see that.
Okay.
And
And that's
it's
the A119. Is that what you said it was?
A119. Yeah, it's
Okay.
135.2 proof.
I'm gonna dig a bottle out. I know
I
I've
was
got
gonna.
it somewhere.
I have that one at
Amazing
home.
pour.
I just have to find it.
It is
12-year
really
age
That's
statement
right.
on there. Yeah, great pour.
Yeah.
Kind of building on the cocktail theme there. To me, this is like a Boulevardier cocktail.
Ooh.
So it's almost like that kind of like
Yeah.
bitterness meets that sweet undertone as well.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a cocktail straight from the bottle. Yeah, amazing product.
That one does
on
have a
this-
lot of like bitter qualities to it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you guys
Yeah.
called that out.
Yeah.
And for me, this, the cherry comes through still on the palate. I mean, it just kind of translates from the nose. That burnt sugar, bruleed sugar really comes through as well for me on this 923. And again, it's just one of my favorites. Absolutely love it. So,
Well,
all right, guys, before, oh,
and
go
to
ahead.
your note, particularly with Heaven Hill, they have a house style. So the same way you talk through walking through the different pours, like Four Roses
Right.
is about assembling all these different varieties coming together. And when you try Four Roses, typically, as long as it's a small batch, it's Four Roses. Turkey, they have their house style. It's big in grain, it's big in barrel, it's high bottle strength. Like when you taste turkey, it's turkey. Well,
Right.
for Heaven Hill, they have that house style. It's really big. It's prominent in sour mash. It's very floral in regards to its throughput, and it's a great pour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this maddening phenomena of like all of these different whiskeys are incredibly different in regards to how they profile, how they're assembled, but they all have a place on the shelf. They all have a right to be there.
Yep. I think that's a great point. Appreciate you saying that. So, guys, what does the future look like for you guys for Eastern Light?
For me, it's a lot of construction. Right now, I have got an inbox that's flooded with submittals and plans and engineers and flow rates and everything related to
Nice.
actually building the plant. But I've done it before. I'm really excited to do it again.
Nice.
So the next 14 months will be a labor of love in getting Eastern Light built on my side.
Yeah, on my side, it's amazing just working with our Rolodex of customers already and just kind of the creativity they bring to our industry, new ways of thinking, new innovation that's going to make us better from beginning to end. And then frankly, for both of us, this whole project and this venture is a legacy. It's a legacy for Eastern Kentucky, for our families, for the region as a whole. It's not about our egos. This is about helping people make bourbon better. That's what it's all
Nice.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I always like to ask my guests, what's been for you personally, your favorite part of this journey so far in the whiskey industry?
To me, it's been the amount of people that have been so willing to go out of their way to be advocates from every aspect of the word advocate, right? So helping us kind of find expertise when we needed it in the construction phase and in the fundraising phase, in the USDA guarantee loan program. I mean, you name it, every little discipline out
Mhm.
there. And just the field and team of experts that have helped us has been humbling and just great to be part of. Really, really special.
Nice.
So I'm going to give you two answers. One is the outward one that is very understandable and relatable, and then one that's a little more different. So the outward one, at our groundbreaking, when we're standing there and you look around the tent there and it's flowing over the sides, we had in excess of 300 people there, and it's friends and families and business owners and partners and contractors and everybody who's worked so hard to help us get to this point. Like I was like struggling not to tear up the whole time I was
Sure.
speaking and looking at that. Like just the revelation of like, these people believe in us. They believe in Eastern Kentucky. They believe in bourbon, and this is our time. Like that was absolutely amazing. But then the one that's more inward is, for me, it's always the thrill of the pursuit, the getting it right, the getting it done. So
Yeah.
I'll be at like 1 a.m. working on a spreadsheet where I'm trying to calculate BTUs going into process. And when it clicks and it hits, I'm like, yes. It's when I design processes and I realize like, okay, this is going to work. There's that concept of like racing the clock and always making the process better. So whether it's day 1 or year 50 at Eastern Light, I'm going to continue to strive to make it a better distillery, even if it has changes and if it's collateral, even if we have to waste some money redoing some things. I want to make sure that every effort that we pour out of that distillery is as good as we can produce.
That's awesome, man. I mean, great answer. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners get more information about Eastern Light?
EasternLight.com. Follow us on all the social channels as well.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Like it.
Easy.
Very straightforward.
Hit
And
the easy
listen to
button.
this podcast.
Exactly.
Though if you're really at
Exactly.
this point, I guess they already have.
And we'll be
That's
present.
right. That's right.
I would say we're going to be present, of course, at Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Myself as the chairman. We're doing a wrap-up session on Sunday, 2:30. Caleb
Awesome.
on Saturday at 12:30 about new distilleries.
And of
Awesome.
course, visit us at Bourbon Beyond.
Bourbon and Beyond, we're going to have a full brand experience. Imagine kind of the Eastern Kentucky forest brought to the property here in Louisville and telling the purity of the ingredients of the region, the land, the water, the grain, the wood, and the people.
Well, that's great. Well, we'll see you guys at the KBF for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
And probably I'm supposed to be at Bourbon and Beyond, so hopefully there
TBD
as
on
well.
me.
So
I don't know.
Come and see
that's
us.
awesome. Awesome. Guys, any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
Can't thank you enough for having us.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Really appreciate how prepared you all were. I did not know the connections to rural Eastern Kentucky, but I do now. And that is, as someone who's from that region who we had to leave, there wasn't the opportunities there that we needed.
Sure.
The opportunity to
Yep.
not just go back, but bring the opportunity that I didn't have there. It's just going to be special. Hopefully the next
Sure.
person who wants to get into this industry who's from that region doesn't have to go across the state to get there.
Yep. That means a lot to me from being from that area. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people out there may not get it, but I get it. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Stacey, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Well, I'm not from Eastern Kentucky.
She's from Northern Kentucky.
I'm from Northern Kentucky, but I'll just say your all's dedication to bringing something back to local communities is huge. And being from a small community myself, even though I'm from Northern Kentucky, speaks volumes to me. So I think that that's going to speak volumes to not only your consumers, but also to other people that you all have out there trying to seek support. So your local farmers and what have you. It's no wonder why you guys have an outpouring of support from the local communities around you. So congratulations to you guys. I'm going to be a big supporter. Absolutely loved everything that I've heard so far. So best of luck to you guys. And I can't wait to taste what you guys have coming out of your distillery, and can't wait to see what contract distilling opportunities you guys get. So thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Much appreciated. Stay tuned for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I
Thank
mean,
you all.
Caleb, like I said, I'm sorry we've not had you on the show before. It's an error that we've corrected now, so I'm happy to be able to say that. And it will not be another 4 years, I'm sure, before we have you back on the show. So
I look forward to
I'm
being
really
a
excited.
regular.
Yeah, I think so, man.
That's right.
Careful what you
excited.
wish for.
Yeah.
You can fill up your
I'm-
calendar pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But I'm excited. I mean, I really am, man. Like, you know, just that Eastern Kentucky connection, what you guys are doing, the fact you went there, you know, in my mind, it's like kind of a risk. I mean, but it's a great risk. And I think it's great that you guys are doing it. The community needs it. The region needs it. And I'm excited to see that, you know, Kentucky, we are the largest producer, obviously, of bourbon in the world, 95% or whatever. But it's always been, you know, west of Lexington. And
I was going to say
excited.
that our industry needs to go to that region.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I agree. I agree completely. So I'm thrilled to see that you guys are taking this step and taking this challenge on and doing it. And what you've expressed tonight with how you're doing it and the impact it's going to have on that region, I'm really excited about it. So I can't wait to follow along with you guys. Love to come out and see everything, you know, once you guys are up and running and doing things. I'm just really excited about that. So thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for what you're doing.
not only that, Mark, I also wanted to say not only what you're doing for the local community, but what you're doing for the bourbon community as a whole. You guys are offering a lot more customization and a lot more openness to people that are wanting to get into contract distilling. So hats off to you guys for offering that.
We appreciate that, making it more accessible.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to wrap us up here, get us out of here. I appreciate you guys joining us. But we are the Bourbon Life Podcast, of course, presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, the support of all our sponsors. Couldn't bring you this show every week without them and all of our great sponsors. So thank you to them. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you guys for joining us, whatever time of day it is. Like Matt always says, even though Matt's not here.
Matt's not here. Sorry.
Yeah, morning, noon, or night. Whenever it is, you get your Bourbon Life fix. Thanks for sitting in and listening, taking the time to join us. We really appreciate that. If you want to find more information, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Bourbon Life. You can also join our private Facebook group at The Bourbon Lifers. We'd love to have you in there. A lot of fun conversations and things going on. You can also email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions or just have some questions, feel free to email us. I answer all those emails, so feel free to do that. And don't forget to check out our buddy, Big Chief Mike. He's doing the whiskey trip. That comes out under our umbrella. So every Tuesday, you get a new Whiskey Trip podcast. So Mike's doing some great stuff with some craft distilleries out there. So be sure to check that out. Check him out on Instagram and Facebook. We really appreciate that. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.
Welcome to the kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company, where every visit is a celebration of tradition and flavor. Did you know that the kitchen table is nestled right within the heart of the distillery? That's right. You can experience the essence of James B. Beam's legacy while savoring their delectable dishes. Join them every Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for a culinary journey like no other. Planning a special event? Let the kitchen table be your host, creating unforgettable memories for you and your guests. And don't miss their exclusive Behind the Beam tour and monthly Claremont Supper Club events, which will feature the 2024 Distillers Share releases at the November event. For more information and reservations, visit beamdistilling.com. The kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company. Come as a friend, leave as family.